And next up this afternoon, and a very good day to you, is Bechara Kaddoum, who joined us earlier for the 5G panel. So if you didn't see him then, you'll be seeing him for the first time. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Bechara, who is with Telefonica Global Solutions, and is currently responsible for the telco cybersecurity business in the Europe, Middle East, Africa, and APAC regions. Prior to Telefonica, Bechara was the founder of a company in Lebanon, an IT company in Lebanon called BTK. He holds a master's degree in cybersecurity from IE, the School of Science and Technology, and has been in the information security space for more than 7 years. We very much appreciate your contribution to today, Bechara, and today you will be hearing about the humanizing of cybersecurity. So Bechara, a very good afternoon to you.
Thank you, Paul. It's a pleasure being with you. Thank you for the invitation, and I hope our attendees will really enjoy this session. We're changing a bit the mood from purely probably technological, moving into the human. So let's hope this session will be interesting for everyone. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for inviting us.
It's an absolute pleasure, Bechara. And obviously this morning with Maxine's session, she mentioned about the human aspect of that. So I think this will, with other people's comments toward the human side, this will provide a really good insight. So I shall step aside and come back to you in a little while.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
So to start with, thanks for joining our session. So the title, it looks a bit catchy, I would say. Humanizing Cybersecurity, Why Your Employees Are the Best Defense. So my name is Bechara. I think the introduction from Paul is enough on that. And please, if you have a question, I think the team will take it and we will answer it at the end. So to start with the agenda, we'll be talking about VUCA and cybersecurity. For some of you who's familiarized with VUCA, we'll just match it with the cybersecurity or this cyberspace. Second, we'll be talking about the threat landscape, which is constantly evolving. We'll talk third about the human defense, moving from a cost to more return on security investment. And last but not least, which are the best practices for cyber defense and protection. So I like to start with this quote, I would say, from Robert Mueller, who's the FBI director of 2012. There are only two types of companies, those that have been hacked and those that will be. It's important to know that at some points, getting into this world where things are getting more and more connected, everyone is becoming connected. I think COVID has made us change our lifestyle at some point as well. Working from home, getting things more and more connected to the cloud. This at some point create what we consider as humanizing the cybersecurity, leading to this VUCA concept, where we talk about volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. This VUCA world shows basically the unpredictable nature of the world at stake, like the situation that we have in COVID-19. We are in right now, and we will be, because COVID-19 has changed the way we are looking into technology. The deeper meaning of each element of VUCA serves to enhance the strategic significance of the VUCA foresight and insight, as well as the behavior of groups and individuals in an organization. All around the world, we changed, and which catch all basically for, hey, it's crazy out there. Some of the things we are not being able to understand, and some technologies we are trying to understand day after day. So let me take a small time here explaining the different part of this VUCA, the volatility, uncertainty, going deeper into the cybersecurity or our new perspective in a day-to-day reality. So when we talk about volatility, what's changing and how? Cyber environments basically change quickly and sometimes extremely. Definitely adversaries continually are changing their techniques in order to get into our company or get information from our company. For example, if I take the BEC or business email compromise attacks and spoofing tactics, which is still used nowadays, the first year, the target is the corporate executives. For example, we try to send them email, and the hackers try to send them email in order to get significant information or corporate information. So that was the first year. The second year, they will use the same techniques, but rather than targeting the executives, which now the executives, they are trained, they look for, let's say, normal employees or normal staff, and they target them in order to get information. So they changed their tactics, I would say, but the technique is still the same. And we can see that this volatility also is from normal day-to-day operations. So the business model evolves, definitely changing the attack surface that must be defended. If we take an example of marketing people, they used to print some advertising, share their information on a newspapers. Now they are using social media. They want to share their information on Facebook. They want to create profiles on Facebook. This create as well some vulnerabilities. That's why at some points we provide digital risk protection services, where you need to put some layers of security in order to know if there is anyone who is using your brand, know if someone is trying to attack your brand, know someone, because at the end, these kind of services or the internet itself hasn't been built with the security in mind, so, or security in design. So that's something to always keep in mind. Moving forward to the next step, which is this uncertainty. Who might target you and why, basically? So in spite of layered security measures and significant infrastructure investments, security teams still worry about what they don't know. At some points, all the security teams still consider that there is attackers who's behind these computers. They are trying to attack me in a way or another. My security team are always concerned. Okay, what I don't know about this attacker. I can tell that basically we don't know anything about these attackers. They always have techniques, tactics, and procedures. I'll mention and processes. I'll mention several times to attack us. So we don't know how much they are prepared. We don't know how much they are ready, how much they know about our company. That makes our security teams a bit frustrated, and more frustration means that security team is under uncertainty. They don't know how to act, and as well, it's not only about the people outside of our organization. Some security teams, they are frustrated even about their good employees. So if the employees or the staff is as well good guys, because we all know that there is sometimes we can find in companies insiders. So that's something to consider. Moving further, the complexity. Where your business goals and growth objectives affect your security strategies. I think the enterprise infrastructure in general is extremely and incredibly complex, having legacy softwares, having legacy devices, having softwares for different departments, having sometimes shadow IT, some devices that we are not aware of, and this is just an example. But we can even keep in mind that there is some human error there when it comes to configuration, because the growth sometimes is super fast that the IT team is just concentrated on making the business work rather than making it more secure. So attackers using these TTPs, techniques and processes, they are aware of this complex environment, and they try to move between it and move from one to another to a third one, trying to investigate, trying to get information, try to just understand the environment and so on in order to attack. So this complexity requires us to take some kind of let's say, support for our security team to create more, let's say, an understanding of the environment, keeping things secured. But we need to keep in mind one thing, which is important. We have a shortage in cybersecurity professionals. So we need to upskill our security teams, because finding a security specialist is kind of hard. We can know that from Cisco, for example, they mentioned that the shortage by 2021 will be more than 3 million security specialists needed around the world, either from APAC region or from Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And last but not least, I'll talk about the ambiguity. And what is the ambiguity? Basically, how you might be targeted from which perspective, which tools you will be targeted. This ambiguity is high in an enterprise security environment. It's difficult to have immediate, clear, and prescriptive insight to security events. Overwhelming amount of events and alerts make it impossible to parse logs quickly. So teams often must attempt to manually correlate events from across the infrastructure for their response. I still need manual support from my security team. Not everything can be automatically, even though now we are having a lot of security tools such as SOAR, CMs, threat feeds, and all these, where we are getting information and insight. So my team is not correlating it, but still we need some manual efforts from our team. So living in this VUCA world basically is, sorry, just a sec. So living in this VUCA world, keep in mind that this environment is to cultivate resilience, building a cybersecurity approach and practices around continuous flexibility and proactivity. Resilience starts with acknowledging that as long as there is an adversary intent on doing damage, there are many factors that are out of our team's control. This is why simply locking down a security infrastructure can't work. Instead, you need to develop a security team with resilience culture. Team members must be able to fluidly anticipate and have flexibility to choose the best response from a wide range of possible responses. They might proactively identify key assets, maintain an awareness of current threats, and plan in advance for multiple eventualities. That's where our security teams need to be there, answering the growth, answering the attack, and being proactive and resilient. So just to show you some of the this crucial factor where basically technology growth is exponential compared to our human comprehension. So by far, the biggest driver behind VUCA is technological development. We can see every single day, SASE, firewalls, next generations, SOAR, and these kind of technologies, which are really rapidly growing, and sometimes our human comprehension is not able to understand it. So this is not a bad thing, of course, as technology always brings with it new efficiencies, increased productivity, richer experiences, and in general, improved quality of life. But it also brings byproducts with it, such as new cybersecurity risks, because more independence and systemic risks between different platforms, privacy and mass surveillance, concerns, and just general anxiety and everything changing really fast. Our security teams, our employees are getting frustrated. And at some points, I think this picture shows it very clearly that the efficiency is growing for sure. The technology is growing exponentially in innovation, but our human comprehension isn't growing in the same pace. So that's crucial to keep our team always trained. And we will have a section where we will be talking about do we consider training as a cost, or do we consider it as a return on security investment? So just to give you an example, I've been talking about the different threats and so on. It's important to understand or to see a real example. WannaCry, which I assume some of our attendees are already aware of, is one of the threats that basically was globally. It affected several companies, all types of companies, basically. We can see from the automotive industry, we can see from the government institutions, from other manufacturing industry, or any of these companies. There was thousands of companies affected. And this is the map that we can see. Those in red are the countries that has been affected by WannaCry. And we can see that it was a global threat that was back then in 2014, 2015. But I think every single day we are still having threats. There is a lot of websites where we can see the threats moving between countries or between threat actors and so on. So the threat landscape is constantly evolving. And we will see in the slides coming that we will be talking about 300, 400% of increase in just 1 year of this COVID pandemic, where most of the people or companies are moving to cloud, seeking new business opportunities. So let us get a look about the top threat scenarios, top attack vectors, and top adversary groups. we can see that the data breach, definitely led by a ransomware, a malware, a virus, or any of these, is one of the top priorities. Top attack vectors until today, still phishing is one of the top attack vectors. From phishing, we can derive different, let's say, threats, such as ransomware, such as malware, and so on. They are derived by a phishing email, which is still used until today. And top adversary groups, we are hearing a lot nowadays about nation-state entities, nation-state groups, or organized crime groups that are targeting in order to get information from either companies or other governments. So to see some figures, some numbers, between 2019 and 2020, the first 4 months, we can see on the part on the left that new attacks has been growing by 33 to 36%, so approximately 35%. Those are the new attacks. Definitely, if we look to the right part of the slide, we can see the growth within the COVID pandemic of the different viruses. I picked just 4. There's definitely a lot. I think during today's sessions, there was some sessions with regard to crypto mining and the use of your computers in order to crypto mining. But I just picked these 4 to tell you that basically the spyware, which is one of the, I think these 4s, they are the most famous threats nowadays. Spyware, we have a growth of almost 200%. Virus in general, we have a 200% almost. Ransomware, which we are hearing every single day in the news, ransomware attack on this governmental institution, on this company, on this in Spain, for example, we had some ransomware attack a couple of weeks ago on one of our governmental institutions. So this ransomware is growing really crazy. We are having a 435% growth between 2019 and 2020. And the dropper as well, we are having a 270% increase between 2020 and 2019 and 2020. So we have an average approximately 350% growth in malware, and I think this is a very critical number, because companies need to invest in order to protect against these viruses or these malwares, and not only in technology but as well in their people. So this leads us to the human defense. Should we consider it a cost, or should consider it a return on security investment? I think it's really impressive, because interesting, because if we will be talking to a financial analyst or our chief financial officer, everything is about money. So I'll need to consider the cost of these trainings. But at the same time, if I look at it from a different perspective, so if I consider that within my monetary risk mitigation, if I have a breach, there is some legislations, for example, in the EU, which is the GDPR, where if there is any information that has been leaked about my customers or employees, I need to pay for these employees or these people a kind of a fine. Or if there is any business disruption on my business, I'm losing money. And last but not least, if my team will be, for example, my security team, taking 2 or 3 days to do a configuration, which might be a misconfiguration or might have some errors, after getting trained might be more efficient. This all goes under the monetary risk of the mitigation. And if I do it, reduction from the cost, I'm having a benefit on a return on security investment, which is not tangible on hand, but definitely looking at it from a proactive perspective. That's the way we look at it in cybersecurity. We try always to be proactive rather than reactive, because being reactive means that this is an investment. Being proactive means that I'm having a return on this security investment, which might lead to reduce a huge amount of money. Sometimes we are talking about 400, 500, or 600% with regard, depends on the country size and the company size. Just to give you some figures, the average data breach cost from human errors is 3.33 million based on IBM in 2020. The average total cost of a breach is 3.86 million. So 3.33 million is based on human error. When I say human error, is either unawareness, so either a normal employee, or misconfiguration of any of the network tool or any of the tools included or hardware installed inside the company, or basically it can be an insider, it can be let's say a recovery at some points that took a lot of time after a breach. So these kind of human errors where my people trained can solve this issue. So this is a huge number to consider. The last part, which it's relevant, very relevant to understand, and I would like to start with this first 3 pillars approach. We always look to the cybersecurity part or the cybersecurity word from the right side of this slide, from the data and information and processes. So management of the systems, governance, policy and procedure, managing the third parties, all these processes, I made them in place. Then I work for the data and information, IT, OT, personal data, operational data, put technologies, all the structure that it should be from a technical perspective, very good. But this is not the 360-degree security that you need. We need on the same part, on the left part, you can see that there is people. And these people, they are the best defense, or at least they complement the defense of the company. When we talk about phishing and seeing that there is a 500% almost growth in ransomware attacks, these ransomware attacks didn't come from a technology. These ransomware attacks didn't come from a process. Sometimes, yes, there is some process or policies that are not in place. But most of the times, these comes from a phishing email. These comes from a human error, where this can lead for the business disruption, can make our company, let's say, at some points facing some challenges or some fines. So training my people, making them aware, or professional skills and qualifications, some physical security, make things definitely more secure. Not only technology is all we need our people to be trained on these technologies and aware of these technologies. So I'll just specify the 4 different best practices, the most relevant, I would say, and definitely there is much more. So when I talk about training, I think I mentioned it already. So it's the first way, basically, to provide extensive and frequent training to promote awareness of security issues. Anything from just a comment on Facebook, for example, or using the same password for a personal email and professional account, not clicking on a phishing email that look legit, always check the email address. These kind of things, which doesn't take much, but it needs to be trained and planned during the year to make our team prepared. Multi-factor identification and multi-factor authentication. So many industries, including, unfortunately, nuclear plants sometimes, still use the factory set password 1234 or ABCD 1234. And that's sometimes for sensitive equipments. Many security experts recommend that basically this multi-factor authentication is really important nowadays. Multi-factor identification and authentication is something that is crucial for the companies and for our employees to get notified, especially where they definitely have some processes in place, but to keep our company secure. However, definitely multi-factor authentication has some ways to bypass from a security perspective, but at least I'm strengthening the security procedures. I'm strengthening my security posture by putting a first layer, which is password, then putting on top of it multi-factor authentication. Some companies now, they are using biometrics. They are using they are trying to avoid as much as possible using password. Single password is used within other platform. So there's a lot of technologies nowadays that at some point help in reducing the human error. That's all we care about, reducing the human error. So the third part is patch management. There is a huge amount of threats coming from patch management or ineffective patch management. According to a recent survey from SunGuard Availability Services, half of the IT professionals see outdated security patches as a problem. If anything, that level of concern understates the issue, given the ongoing importance of quickly patching software such as Microsoft Internet Explorer, for example, or Firefox, or any of the services that we've been using on a day-to-day basis, we can see that these kind of services or softwares, they are oftenly exploited. So what we need to do is the following, basically. We need our team to get more engaged in identifying the threat, identifying the vulnerabilities, reducing as much as possible the shadow IT, having some services that are definitely helping in understanding or getting the monitoring the vulnerabilities within our softwares, but as well having some security specialists which are able to identify if this threat is led by a misconfiguration or not, making sure that all our softwares and services and IT equipment are well configured, because we consider these three are really super easy. Why we are talking about them? But I believe that a lot of our companies, we feel that this is really sometimes a nightmare, especially when we have thousands of services or thousands of softwares that are available within our companies. Last but not least, talking about the breach detection. We know prevention isn't enough. We, at some points at the beginning of my presentation today, I've been talking about there is two types of companies, the one that has been hacked and the one that will be. So breach detection is relevant, I would say. Cybersecurity breach will happen. And the most damage is caused basically after a breach. So to detect a breach, businesses must identify breadcrumbs that attackers leave behind during each stage of the attack. So attackers move across the network. They try to move from a server to another in order to gather all this information. And sometimes they generate connections to command and control centers or to other services in order to share this information that they gather. So definitely some breach detection softwares, they are able to identify these odd behaviors or these malicious activities inside our network. But the first line of defense is still human being. So a human understanding and analysis of the system is essential in implementing the best monitoring and breach detection techniques that a company can have. So summarizing all this, I think, talking about the training, the breach detection, the patch management, the multi-factor authentication, this helps us reduce as much as possible our human error, helps us to train our teams, security or normal employees, being aware about cybersecurity. And this helps in reducing the cost of a breach, helps in reduce the cost of business disruption. As well, it helps in an increasing of the return on security investment that we are putting within our strategy. So that was the main idea for today. I hope you found it interesting. We tried to capture this humanizing the cybersecurity. We're talking not from a technical perspective, moving more into the human error. So I'll go back to Paul. I'm not sure if we have a question or something. So.
Well, I know we're actually short for time ahead of the next session that Dario's leading, but yeah, I just wanted to pick up on one thing, because obviously you and I spoke ahead of this, and clearly this is a cultural shift. It's a mind shift. You know, this morning it was raised by Maxine about for instance, having a chief cybersecurity officer reporting to a CEO, and the piece there about organisations obviously having budget for say fraud losses, having budgets for fines for non-compliance. And clearly one of the key pieces here is the requirement for budget, the budget for training people to do the right thing, to eradicate the human error, but also identify the human bad actors on the inside. That is clearly a big challenge for the industry, and this whole thing is a cultural shift. You just mentioned there about the patch management and the issues about, you know, the kind of the old patch environment. There's also one of the biggest issues I see in cybersecurity, and I think is recognized, is that there's a lot of people that portray their organizations as delivering X, but it's kind of X minus Y, because they're looking at cybersecurity with theories and ideas which existed 3, 4, 5, even 10 years ago. They're not focused on tomorrow. You know, the threat actors are not focused on yesterday. They're focused on today, and they're focused on the future. This is where budget is needed to stay ahead and a cultural shift is. And I know that at Telefonica Global Solutions over the last 2 years, whilst you've been undertaking this role, it has been part of a major cultural program. And on that, you know, I would like to thank you and the support of the Telefonica Global Solutions for what you're for delivering such an educational insight in terms of humanizing cybersecurity, Bechara.
Thank you, Paul. At the end, I can say that cybersecurity, definitely from a technology perspective, everyone is looking at. But I think the most relevant part is making the awareness ready for the community. Sorry, I'm not. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Yes, you just froze momentarily.
So. Yeah, sorry. So that's what we try to do in Telefonica, basically awareness within our community, within our businesses. Cybersecurity is about awareness, it's about sharing knowledge. So we hope that this is, thank you for the invitation. We hope this was really interesting for our attendees. And definitely the budget is a concern, but we need to look at it from a different perspective, as you mentioned.
Absolutely, absolutely. And on that note, I shall thank you, and I shall hand back to the operations team as we introduce him, Peter Morgan from Cellusys with Dario. So thank you again, Bechara.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for the team.